A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Let's do some intentions. Hello, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I love the show and I've been listening to all the segments of the show, relating and laughing, except for the intention segment. I've never felt so out of control on my own emotions or thoughts that would require an intention until now. So she's saying she never related to this section.
Right. She's like, I skipped that one until now.
I hate it. Now I'm back. All right. After many weeks of trying to find answers as to what was wrong with my 9-year-old golden retriever, Brookie, we decided that the kindest thing to do was to let her go without feeling pain. We had an incredible vet come to our house to do it in her bed, with my husband and I petting her and hugging her. The entire experience was idyllic, and she went so peacefully and happily. On to my issue. I can't stop crying. In my mind, I know we made the right choice for her, but I can't help the feeling of sadness that I can't have her with me anymore. I miss everything about her. She was my soul dog. She was loyal, a love bug, goofy, smart, protective, patient, and my literal shadow. She was also the younger of our 2 dogs, so she was the baby and the first one to go. I feel like I need an intention to not spiral and cry nonstop. One of my kids asked me if I was going to cry forever. I told them not forever, just for now, because I'm very sad, but it feels like I just might. It's the first time I've had to make a decision like this in my life, and I know I'm not coping well. My husband is being so supportive, but is concerned about me. I've never been this emotional about anything. If you could help me with an intention that I can repeat to myself whenever I start going into that downward spiral, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and guidance.
I really feel for her.
I know, so sad. Even the vision of the last moments where you're there, and just dogs are so innocent. It feels very I don't know.
Yeah, that imagery of that moment, I think that's a lot of what comes up in, a couple of things come up in these types of grief situations. One is, again, that last moment. Every time we talk about pet loss, I literally feel it in my throat. I feel that lump coming in my throat. And what immediately comes to me is the last moment that I had with my dog Ralph, which was the worst pet loss I've experienced. So that visual, I can see it right this minute. And it's so painful and it's so hard to sit with that. And then the other thing is guilt and regret.
Right. Yeah, because I think this, it sounds like the dog is younger than her other dog. She didn't really know what the issue was, so I'm sure she feels a sense of could I have saved her? Could I have done more? Was this, I'm sure that's running through her head as she's thinking about the dog, on top of missing, the everyday things that the dog brings into your life.
And so the guilt, that visual imagery, and then with animals, and people might find this offensive, and I guess it changes based on all of your relationships, but a lot of times pet loss can be even harder than losing a human person, because there's nobody in your life that's coming into the bathroom with you, coming up on the bed with you, going outside with you, coming inside with you, moving around your whole space with you, living in your house with you, and just being so present. All the sounds that they make, their little paws on the floor, or barking in the morning to go out. When they're gone, there's a whole sensory deprivation of your space that can feel just so empty, and enhance that, that hole in your heart and that deep longing. Even if you lose a human, it's kind of oh, I was going to call them and tell them about this thing, or I can't call them, I can't hear their voice. And obviously that's huge and that's bigger in a lot of ways. But with the pet loss, it's all these moments where you're oh, I thought I saw him out of the corner, saw her out of the corner of my eye, or the little dog toy that I always pick up and put in all these little moments that
or you come home and they're not waiting for you or something.
Yeah. And they're in your space, and it's a huge loss. So I really feel for her, But I think the part where she can make a little bit of a change is in that guilt space. And I talk to patients about this a lot when they have, sometimes with animals, sometimes with elderly parents or someone who's sick. It's almost like when you're trying to make sure that you're doing every single thing so that after they pass, you won't feel guilty. And I always, try to talk to them and just say, the human mind will find some guilty thing to cling on after a loss most often. So it's like, well, if you didn't go visit them that one last time, but even if you did visit them that one last time, I have people where they're literally, wiping their butt on their last poo, but they weren't in the room the moment that they, passed
Right.
away, or they thought they were thirsty when they died and they should have gotten them some water, or like it's endless, the things that your mind can do to make you feel guilty. So I think that's what she's probably doing here is there's something, she brings up the decision. There's something around this decision that her mind is still clinging to and making her feel guilty and feeling like, something different could have happened to make it better. And I hope to convince her that it's just a product of her mind and it's not, reality. I'm sure she made that decision very thoughtfully. And yeah, when she gets in that grief space where she keeps crying, it's almost like you can do one of two things or a combination of like going down writing the story, like rehashing the story in your mind of the decision and what came with it, or you can go the path of like the feeling. Like this just feels sad and empty and lonely and I'm experiencing grief, but leaning out of well, what if and the decision and maybe we shouldn't and maybe we should have gone to one more vet and maybe we should have spent a little more money or whatever. It's kind of like I would just lean away from that and lean into the feelings, which are really real. And I don't know how long it's been, but um, it's normal and it's your love. This grief is your love. So this is really hard.
Agreed. Well, do you have an intention for when she starts to probably go down that like mental spiral of all those thoughts on top of the, like that missing feeling?
Yeah. So I wrote for her, grief is love with nowhere to go. Lean into the feeling and away from the story. Because this feeling belongs. This feeling is your expression of love for this soul dog that you had, which is so special. And it's a way to kind of keep her here for now. And just kind of, it's the transition between her being there in body and her being there in spirit emotionally through this listener's grief and tears. So you're in that transition period right now. So just kind of leaning into the feeling, allowing it. It's okay if your kids say, "Are you ever going to stop crying?" They're going to be fine. They're going to see that this is part of life and they're going to be okay. I think people are really afraid to feel too much in front of their kids, but that's okay.
Well, I guess there's a feeling of like I don't want to scare them,
Yeah.
right? Maybe or
Yeah,
something.
mom's not okay. Maybe I'm not okay if my mom's not okay. And look, if this goes on for months and months, I would, seek therapy around it. And that's totally, you know, a normal thing to go to therapy for. Pet loss. It doesn't have to be a human loss in order to go to therapy. So if it continues for longer than what you feel like is okay for you or you're not functioning well, I definitely would seek out therapy on it. I don't know how long it's been, but for now, I just think not fueling it with the narrative around, what you did, what you didn't do, what you should have done, and just kind of allowing that the transition of love from the physical form now into this emotional form to exist. And that's okay.
Agreed. All
And
right.
it's good for your kids to like maybe be a little bit, to just see this and see that that loss is big and it's part of life.
Right. It's
So
okay
that's,
to like grieve for things.
yeah.
That's true. All right. Well, good luck. Let's do some triggers.
All right.
All right. You want to read our first one?
Sure. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I have a triggered scenario for you. My company recently reached a new revenue milestone and had a meeting to celebrate. In the meeting, they said, in honor of our hard work, they would be giving us two gifts, a smartwatch and over the ear headphones. They were very clear that this was a gift, and they were buying these to thank us for how we've helped the company achieve this goal. Then, at the very end of the email about how to claim our gifts, there was a very short blurb, fine print style, that said it was a quote, taxable benefit and may be reflected in your next paycheck. They didn't say anything in the meeting about how our compensation might be affected. We got our next paycheck, and I was shocked to see that it was $450 less than my usual paycheck. The pay stub showed it in earnings and deductions. My coworker said their paychecks also had huge chunks taken out of them, and people in our Slack channels were upset too. Plus, by the time we saw how it affected our take home pay, the return window had closed. So our only option was to keep them, even though I wouldn't have bought them myself. They've given us expensive gifts before, like a Patagonia jacket and a $250 speaker, but it's never been something that has resulted in me getting a smaller paycheck. HR responded to the complaints with essentially a shoulder shrug and a "we told you so." I know they technically told us, but it feels shady. Am I right to be annoyed by the lack of transparency of this gift?
Yeah, I think this is really irritating. Why would someone want a gift they had to pay for?
It's crazy. And I don't get it. I guess the gift was worth, maybe the watch and the headphones were worth so much that $450 was a taxable percentage of that.
Yeah, they're getting it at a smaller rate, but then why present it as a gift? It should be presented. A gift is something that you get and there's no strings attached. Like they should have presented it as like an opportunity to buy these items at a lower cost.
Right. Yes.
If that was
That's
the
exactly
case.
how it should have been presented.
It's annoying to present like the president again, like if this is what they wanted to do and this is what they wanted to offer, fine. That's like all, let's say that's all they could offer at that time, whatever. But then call it an opportunity.
Right.
Don't call it a gift.
Yes.
Like that's like the gaslight. Like to bring it back to the first email. Like that's like the gaslighty thing about the first one. It's like you're saying it's a gift, but I'm paying for it. It's not a gift.
Right. And I could see if it was a deduction of $30 or something, but $450 in one paycheck for, these devices that you might not have picked. And look, I assume, since this is the first time it happened, that probably the people who made this decision, I'm assuming they didn't realize what was going to happen in regards to this, with payroll and all that. But I would definitely make a stink about it so that they realize what's happening and offer it up differently next time, and just be very clear. There's going to be a $450 deduction. These gifts are worth $1,000.
Right. If you want it. Right. Let us know.
Yeah. This was definitely shady. I would be really aggravated at this, but I guess, and I'm glad you wrote in, because if anyone else's company does this, now they're going to know that this is a thing that could happen.
Totally. This is a coupon, not a gift.
Yes.
So I think this is very triggering. I would be really irritated. I'd give this like, especially if it's too late to return it in the thing, like that's crazy. I would give it like a 7.5.
Yeah, I agree. And the HR coming back and saying, "We told you so." It's like, no, you said it could be reflected in my paycheck. I would have read that and been like, all right, they're going to take out like $50 in tax, or 20,
right,
even less than that,
some
like
tax
$20
situation.
in tax.
Right.
That they're going to be, I'm going to be deducted on this. But I don't even understand, how much could these gifts be worth? That $450 is the taxable portion of this. I don't know.
Right. That it's like and are they doing it because it's a write-off for them? Like what is the benefit to them in doing this?
We need to get an accountant on here. I don't understand what this is. This sounds like a huge chunk being removed for.
Right. Especially if they're presenting it as like something that they've done to celebrate.
Yeah.
Like, so here's a coupon because we're making all this money. Very annoying.
I don't get it. I am curious about this whole concept. Yeah, I agree. 7.5. This feels like a big bait and switch kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry this happened, but thanks for the public service announcement for those of you out there. Good to know.
Yeah.
And you will
Yeah.
probably never be receiving any gifts again.
Right. How about like, she's been like, well, just take the money.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, let's do one more. I will read it. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. You two are such a fun listen, and I love hearing both of your perspectives each week. Writing to you with a trigger about a recent conversation with my sister. My sister is pregnant with her third child, all boys. She's extremely picky when it comes to baby names, which I totally get, and is having a hard time coming up with ideas for the new baby. She called me the other day to run a new name idea by me that she likes, but wanted the green light from me first because it's my ex-boyfriend's name. It was a situation where I thought we'd get married someday, and he ended the relationship after a year and a half. He has a distinct name that you don't hear all that often, which is what makes it a little weird. I know that the name would take on a totally new meaning once it's my nephew's, but it's hard for me to imagine. Ultimately, I told her she can absolutely use it. He doesn't own the name after all, but how triggered can I be? I thought this was a great one.
Yeah.
Because I could see both sides.
Yes. Yes. I could look, you can be triggered. Validate that this is triggering, right?
Yes.
Just the idea of this. Do I think you should have said no? Do I think there's any world in which you could say no? No, I don't. And I think it's going to be good for you to create a new association with this name.
I agree. Listen, sister knows it's weird. I think the fact that she asked you makes it much less triggering. Like if the baby was just born and she was like, it's this
Yeah.
name, and she didn't acknowledge that it's like your ex-boyfriend's name. I think the fact that she was like, hey, because if I were her, let's say I've heard of this name because my sister had a boyfriend. I just like love the name and I've been thinking about it for all these
Right.
years. But I'm like, but I know it's weird. I would do the same thing. I think I'd be like, he's not in the picture anymore. So it's like less weird because it's not like he's like part of our family.
Right.
I know it's weird. I know it could be hurtful. This person did hurt my sister. So I'm going to just ask her and see if she thinks it's okay. And if she does, I think if she said no, I think the sister would pick a different name.
Right. I actually think this is a great example of like, doing some exposure therapy around this to help change her association with this name. And I think this can happen with a lot of different things. But in this case, it's kind of like she will, I guarantee you, within 6 months of this baby's existence on Earth, she's no longer going to have that intense reaction or association to the name and her ex. And it might be actually a good thing in the long run to move on and create a new association.
But it's a little, I could see like hearing the name and you think of, she says the breakup was pretty traumatic.
Right.
He broke up with her.
Right.
I could see like that initial moment of feeling like, this like, I don't like this. And that's okay too.
Yes. Especially if it's a unique name that you don't hear that often. She probably hasn't had to, like, if you broke up with Mike,
right,
you'd probably be exposed, or like if I broke
Many
up with
Mikes.
Jeff, like that's
Yes.
very common name that you hear a lot, and you don't have that same like gut reaction to any time you hear the name Mike or Jeff or, these like very common names. If this guy has a unique name, anytime you hear it, she's instantly thinking about this person. Which I think happens for anyone who has a unique name.
Right. I think here's the thing. What if I wanted to name my kid after one of your ex-boyfriends, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would
Would you want me to call you?
Yes, I probably would. I mean, I would have that initial gut thing of like,
right.
But that's okay. You can handle that. Like you can,
Yeah.
It was nice that she asked her. I do think it would probably taint the experience of meet baby, whatever.
Right.
And all of a sudden you'd be like, oh my gosh, are you serious? So like, I do think it's great that she told her ahead of time. And I think that is the respectful thing to do. If you named your baby after one of my exes, I probably would have that initial like, feeling.
Right.
But within a couple weeks, that's just your nephew and that's his name,
Right. And even with your ex-boyfriend, that would probably be like 20 years ago that you dated. Like this was like probably like the way she's saying it sounds like it was like 3 years ago.
Right.
Which is
right.
And maybe I don't know if she's still single, if that's like I could see like
fresh.
yeah.
Yeah. I validate it. I totally do. It's anything. You get that association. You can get that with like a car or, certainly a name, but there's all these things. Like if I still to this day, if I see a car that was like my ex-boyfriend's car from 20 years ago, I'm like, oh, right.
Right.
Like it still pops into your head.
Yeah. I agree. I think if the baby came out, she never said anything and she announced the baby's name as the ex without acknowledging it, I would give this like a 7.
Yes.
I think the fact that she's asking seems like she's basically saying, I won't use it if you're uncomfortable. I'd give it like a 4.5, just because like it does feel weird. Doesn't mean it's the sister's fault. If I were the sister, I'd probably want to use it anyway.
Right.
If I really like the name.
Yes. And she said she's picky about names, which almost everybody is. But like, I do think this is a perfect example of like this is triggering in the sense that it's like probably literally creating a sensation in her body of discomfort. So like, this is a perfect example of this thing is triggering, but it doesn't mean anyone's doing anything wrong. And it doesn't mean that this shouldn't still happen the way that it's happening. It's triggering and you need to kind of just handle the fact that you're triggered. So as far as like that feeling of like, this is uncomfortable, this is upsetting, I wish it wasn't happening. Yeah, I really validate that. Like that initial moment, would probably feel like a 7. But I think the idea that someone's doing something wrong or that you need to do something about it or change it or stop it from happening or someone messed up, I agree with you. I think it's more like a 4.
Yeah. All right. Validated.
Yeah.
But it's a good one though. It's a good question.
It's a good question. Yeah, I think if we talk to you in a year, you're going to have lost that association, which is a beautiful thing.
Agreed.
All right. I think we did it. That's all we have for today.
That's it. We solved everyone's problems.
All right. That's our time.
Great work today.